working for somebody else in advertising was great, and I loved the energy of that. But there was something that was always calling to me to do my own thing and be my own boss. And I could see how these agencies were being run, and I didn't really want to work for anybody. I really wanted to start my own thing. And I had a friend, a very good friend of mine named James Chong, and he was working at a place called Kinko's. And we actually, we were talking about opening up our own business or starting a magazine. Like, we had very big dreams. And he said, I work at this place, Kinko's. People come in all the time and they rent computer time, but there's no designers to help them. And I was like, yeah, why don't we open up a place that we'll do design work, and we'll rent computers, and we'll make it kind of like a little bit of Kinko's, but also a graphic design studio. So the two of us started thinking about how we could do this. I mean, I had no money, he had no money. I just graduated college. I think I had about $5,000 in the bank. And I had worked my way through college. I paid for college. I was working as a waitress. I was working at the bookstore. I was a resident assistant. Any way I could find a way to make money, I was doing it. So I had a little bit of a savings, and he had a little bit of savings. And he went to a college called Babson College in Massachusetts. So he had a business background, and I had the design background. And we had two other friends that also wanted to join us. So there were like these 4 young people that were like, let's start a business. And I remember talking to my parents about it. And my mom said, how are you going to do this? How are you going to afford to do this? You're making good money now. And are there, what about, vacation time and benefits and health insurance? And I was like, I'm 22, 23. I think, we can do this. If it doesn't work, we'll stop and I'll go get that stable job. But I did not want that stable job. I didn't want to have to punch a clock and be in to work, when they said I had to be. And I wanted to make it on my own terms. And if that meant working 7 days a week around the clock, I was happy to do that because it would be my own. So Jim and I started looking for a location for our business. We didn't have a name. We just knew what we wanted to do. And in Tribeca in the early 90s, it was not a desirable neighborhood, or as desirable as it is now. You can't even afford to live in Tribeca. And we found this old factory on Franklin Street, 73 Franklin Street. And it was a place where it was like a carpet factory. It was more like a warehouse, and it was dusty and old, and it was, falling apart. And we met with the landlord, and he told us the rent was, I think it was $3,000 a month, but it was also a 3,000 square foot retail space, which I don't even think that makes any sense anymore. It's probably $30,000 a month, And the great thing was there was a whole unfinished basement below that. And so Jim and I said, let's take this place. Let's give him $3,000, and I was going to keep my job freelancing so I could still have definite income coming in. And he was still working at Kinko's part-time. So we had a little income on either side. And what we did, we basically moved into the basement illegally of this warehouse. And we brought in a futon, and we put a shower and a bathroom in. I mean, we were just really living, I don't know, like the Wild West. And then on the retail level, I had a friend that was in construction, and he came in and he built all the desks and all the, the cabinetry that was needed for our store. And, we cleaned up the floors, and we varnished the floors, we painted the exterior, and it actually looked pretty good for having I think we had maybe $10,000 combined to get this thing going. And a chunk of that went to the rent. Since I had all these connections in advertising, I knew a lot of people that also did freelance design work. And when they heard that we were opening up the space, they said, yeah, a lot of people couldn't afford a computer. They were really expensive in the early 90s. You buy a Mac and it was unaffordable. So I had a lot of friends that were graphic designers and advertising art directors that were doing freelance jobs, and they would come and they'd rent the computer time. And then on top of that, we would do design work, and Jim was really good about bringing business in. And I remember we had made a brochure about all of our services, graphic design, web design, color copies. I remember we got a Canon color copier, but you had to get a lease on it, and we could not get approved because we hadn't had a stable business for over 6 months. So however it was, these people believed that we could get this business going, and we were very fortunate that people believed in us. We leased the computers, we leased the color copier, and we started offering all these services that we didn't really have the equipment for. So we would say we could do, enlargements and jumbo prints of your design work. And what we would do, we'd say there'd be like a 24-hour turnaround. He would either get on his motorbike, he had a motorcycle, or I would get on my rollerblades, and we would run to like a Kinko's and print these things out on their bubble jet or whatever it was, bring it back the next day and say, here it is. So we went on for a long time like that until we could actually, our business grew and we established some clientele. And we eventually started buying our own equipment, and little by little, it took off. It was a slow start, but I think we were each paying ourselves like $200 a week, but we were living for free kind of downstairs, and it was just very exciting. And it turns out that Franklin, the street that had this business on, turned into, it was called kind of like the alley where all these designers, graphic designers, everybody seemed to be going to this area, and another way that we would kind of make money to get the rent was there were a lot of vendors on Canal Street, and we had all the storage space in the basement. So we would store things for people who had businesses that didn't have storage space. And I also had an area, we had these giant, probably 30-foot ceilings because we were on a retail floor. I would get local artists who couldn't get into all the galleries, maybe in Soho because they were so famous. These people who were just starting out as artists and painters and sculptors, we wanted to have gallery openings for them, and they could also decorate the walls of the space. So I used to put up all of this beautiful artwork on the walls of local artists, and every couple of months we would have a gallery opening. So it would also bring in a lot of people from the neighborhood, and they said, what do you guys do here? And the artists would have their work shown. We were selling paintings, and people would also get to know who we were. So it was just to generate business. So that's kind of how we started that business.